the lecture slide number 3 and 4 combined together, the introduction to project management. In the previous class, we already mentioned about overview of the construction industry, and then we talked about construction economics, how important construction to our economy, and lastly, issue and challenges. And now we want to go into project management. What is project management is all about? So management in the general terminology is referred, there are many definitions anyway. Some people refer to art, some people refer to science. Okay, so in one of the reference, he mentioned about art of getting works by others through the process. There are many processes, namely planning, organizing, leading, controlling, forecasting, coordinating, communicating, motivating, and etc. etc. It is not limited actually. This is just an example to achieve goal and objective of an organization. So when we mention the word art is basically seni. Okay, what is basically the art people, the artistic people have in common? If you mention singer, for instance, so singer, actor, whatever thing, player, not the scientist, it is being considered as artists. What do those people in particular have something in common? Well, basically they do have something called talent. Okay, talent. How do you get the talent? Can you be trained to get the talent? I don't think so. Like a singer. Okay, like a singer, if you know a famous singer nowadays, they basically start singing from very young age. Why? Because they are being given the talent. It is a gift from God. You cannot basically develop talent. You can simply polish your talent, but something is being given to you. And that is basically, we call it art. People who basically know very well in drawing. It is very difficult to go to school and learn how to draw nicely. You must have some kind of things inside you that enable you to come up with that kind of piece of art, for instance. Okay, so that's why being a manager, you must have some kind of talent. Even though you can learn, but a lot of people end up to be not really a good manager. They can just simply be administrator. So most of the time, they are simply administrator. The one that basically run the organization, it is not the boss. It is a lot of people under him. He just basically instruct. So you see, getting work done by others. He basically delegate work, instruct others, and basically track people in order to get things done. And at the end of the day, things looks like it is being executed well, but not by him, okay, by others. But there is an art meaning to say how a good leader, good manager can basically not in the cohesive manner, basically try to get everybody to get involved and people feel happy to work with him or her, and then to contribute their creativity, to even give their best or effort, regardless of whether the job might not be equivalent to their payment. That is the art that a manager should basically have. Okay, so not everybody can be a good manager anyway, because you need some kind of talent. Okay, so inside here we do have a big circle. We call it general management. General management. So general management, almost everything in this world we can relate to management. Business management, hotel management, hospital management, COVID management, university management, sport management, what else? Even people who are dead also, pengurusan jenazah, dead people, basically there are organizations who run the business to manage dead people, you see, even dead people. And then we do have what we call project management. So project management is subset of the whole general management thing. Meaning to say, inside the general management, there could be things called project management. And inside project management, there is terminology related to so-called construction management. Remember, yesterday I already showed you, no, last week I already showed you the project life cycle. There is a big timeline from the initiating process until the end of the project, and we distinguish between project management and construction management. The only differences is in the scope of work or the coverage. So project management normally reflect from the starting of the intention that you want to propose a project, and then it goes into feasibility study, design stage, procurement, and then only we can see the construction. Okay, when the construction is up, and then might take a few years when you basically hand over to the client. So the period of construction management but then project management still do have a few month or years, because it will need to take into account defect liability period. Okay, so project management is a bigger scope, but inside project management, there is what we call construction management. So when the real construction is taking place, that is construction management. Okay, now project management. What is project management? The application of knowledge, okay, knowledge, and then skill, so tool, technique to project activities in order to meet or exceed stakeholder need and expectation from the project. Meeting or exceeding stakeholder need and expectation invariably involve balancing competing demand. Meaning to say, normally the objective would be linked together with the scope, time, cost, and quality. Well, the issue is that when we talk about knowledge, and then skill, and then technique, and then tools, let me give you example. The one that you learn in this class, this is throughout the entire semester, is basically you are gathering knowledge. Okay, you are gathering knowledge about project management, a little bit about project management. But then, okay, let me. Okay, you are getting knowledge. There are many things that you need to learn. Let's zoom in into planning, for instance. So after we completed cross learning outcome number 1, then we are going to jump into planning and scheduling. Okay, so let's say after you graduate from this class, from UTM, maybe next year, and then you start applying for a job, and then you landed in a developer office or contractor office or whatever. And then your boss look at your resume, very impressive resume, that you mentioned that you are well versed in Microsoft project, because we have learned Microsoft project in this class later on. And then you mentioned you have learned project management class. Okay, people thought that, okay, maybe you know something about planning. Okay, why don't the boss will ask you, why don't you in charge of coming up with the scheduling for high-rise building for your company? Okay, now basically thing will start. So how are you going to go about? In order to do that, you need to have knowledge in planning and scheduling. We only learn a few topics only in this class. You cannot be a good scheduler unless you have experience. You go through the whole knowledge of planning and scheduling, which might take a few years, and etc. Okay, so you can learn a little bit, but you need to learn more. So that what we call knowledge. Okay, that's what we call knowledge. And then skill. Skill normally, the differences between skill and knowledge. Skill normally you gain when you basically you work. Okay, so you gain the skill through working experience. You cannot basically read books and then you gain skill. It's almost impossible. Okay, it is a hands-on skill. So let's say in terms of scheduling, what are the skills that you need? For instance, you need to have what we call a construction sequence. You might learn this thing in a construction technology class a little bit. You know a little bit about piling, earthwork, and then scaffolding, and then ground beam, etc., etc. In general, you know, but in reality, in detail, you might know all, because inside the building there could be many elements, and different type of construction would require different construction sequence. When you work, then only you know this thing. Okay, why you need to know construction sequence? Because it normally related to construction method. What are the technique that you are going to use? IBS might be different, conventional might be different, etc., etc. And when you use different type of machinery, your construction method will basically be different. And then what else? You need skill in terms of productivity rate. How are you going to estimate, for instance, how long certain activity will take place? Well, you simply do not know, because there is no books that tell us about that. Okay, in a complete situation, maybe a little bit the concept. So again, you need to get information from the real construction site, from the experience. And there are many more, okay, which basically things that you might be able to gain throughout the duration of the works. That's why normally when you start work, the first 1 to 5 years is very volatile period of time, where you might be thinking of updating resume and try to resign and then get another job again and again until you are really comfortable. So the first 5 years is a more difficult time. Let's say you work at the same organization until 5 years. Then in the 6 years, do you become more comfortable? You almost know almost everything, because normally in construction, things will repeat after itself. So basically, by that time, you would basically have you turn into comfortable zone already. Okay. Then technique tool. Let's start with tech tool. Let's say for planning, for instance, we are going to use Microsoft Project as a software tool. Okay, example. Let's say you download Microsoft Project, you can get the software easily from the internet or from nearby shop or Lazada or Shopee. Okay, never mind, you download for the purpose of education, because we do have exercise that you need to use that software anyway. Okay, now after you download and then you open up the software. So the first question will be in your mind, what to click? How do we get started? Okay, so even the software itself, you need to learn, especially the one that you have never experienced before. You need to learn, and people basically conducted courses after courses just for Microsoft Project. You can go for 3-day courses, which might not be enough, and then you go for a specialized course, another 3 days plus 2 more days, and you have to pay 1-day courses from 800 to 1,000. That's how the market for this kind of courses. Why? Because if you are familiar with this software, it can help you very much in order to become a planner, etc., etc. And you know what? Construction planner or scheduler being paid much higher than normal engineer. Let's say you and your friend graduate with the same degree, okay? The same degree, the same what we call grade, CGPA. So your friend will get around 2,500 salary, might be less. But you instead, you basically go for courses such as planning, scheduling, etc., etc., and you end up to be a scheduler. Okay, never mind. It is your first job. You might not know all, but within a few years, your salary will be basically jump into a different level. Okay, being planner is much being paid much more compared to normal civil engineer. That's why when you graduate, you have to distinguish from your friend, because every day, every semester, for instance, thousand and thousand people graduated from university. UTM alone, how many civil engineers? Not to mention UTHM, University Malaysia, Pahang, Perlis, everywhere. So you must distinguish with certain skill, which basically we do not learn during university. Okay, if you want to learn everything, it will take a few years to graduate, not 4 years, maybe up to 6 or 7 years. Even that might not be sufficient, still not sufficient. And lastly, technique. Let's say Microsoft project. Microsoft project normally use techniques such as PDM diagram. There are many techniques that we are going to learn, but this is the technique being used in that software. So that's why in our class, fundamentally, we are going to learn about PDM diagram, so that when you learn in Microsoft project, then only you understand how things work, so that you will not be making mistake. Okay, so that is an example of what project management is all about. This combination of knowledge, skill, tool, and technique. I just give you example with regard to the area of planning only. So the rest will be the same. Okay, each of the area would require a lot of specific detail. Okay, we mentioned about project management objective. What is being expected? Okay, at the end of the project, people expect the project will basically meeting all the scope of work. And in fact, the scope of work is the one that people pay you. People do not expect you to do more than the scope of work or to do less. You have to do exactly the same, and then only the payment will be made accordingly. And then of course, time or schedule. Okay, and then cost of the project. Client might not be happy when you do the project and you demand extra costs again and again. Well, that's it for the job. For you will be no more job after this. Okay, but if there is a basis, then it should be okay. And of course, quality is one of the most important thing that people can see the quality, or maybe on the surface area. So people basically will pay you according to what they can see and the quality standard that they basically set. Okay, so you need to comply with those things. Okay, this is what we call triple constraint. Instead of using this figure, okay, in Project Management Institute, PMI, Project Management Institute define objective as this diagram. But in many literature, they simplify it. They call it triple constraint. Triple constraint. So what is triple constraint? Time, quality, and cost. Even though we might not mention other things, but basically they are related, interrelated. So for me, instead of using 3 items here, I would like to redraw the graph using here. First one is basically we call it scope, then time, then quality, then cost, and then it is being directly related to quality, safety and health, and then environment. So at the end of the project completion, people expect that we meet the scope, time requirement, cost, and then quality requirement, environmental requirement, and we do not want people to die. It is not worth. Let's say we have completed the second tallest building in the world. It's about to be completed in Malaysia. We call it Merdeka Tower. But then 100 people have to die while finishing the building. So what is the purpose? Okay, you build a sort of amazing building which you can be proud of, but then at the sacrifice of many, in terms of life or in terms of environment and in terms of other things. So it is not worth it. Okay, so everything must be hand in hand in terms of the objective achievement. Okay, so we already mentioned about project management. Okay, this is the example of simple timeline. And you notice this diagram. Okay, this diagram basically reflects, you notice construction. This is what we call construction period. And during this period, this is where construction management definition will take place within the construction phase. But then how about project management? So project management basically start from here until here. Until here, sorry. The operation is basically the facility management. We never know. It will take forever and ever. So, but when we talk about project management, is the period when you just start the project without anything yet, and then you hand over to the client. Okay, you hand over to client, meaning to say the facility is can be operated. So that is the period of what we call the scope of project management. So project management is a bigger in scope, whereas construction management is the subset of project management. But in construction industry, somehow our end product is basically, we call it construction project. So automatically project is being related to construction. So that's why people get confused. Sometimes people mention construction project management. Okay, why? Because our end product is basically construction project. Whereas in other industry, the project might be defined differently. Remember, I mentioned even a wedding can be considered as a project. When you basically you produce a books, it can be considered as a project. When you develop a software, also a project. Anything can be a project if they fulfill the definition of project characteristic, as I mentioned last week. Okay, now construction management. So construction management involved in during the construction phase. Okay, it involved the completion of project according to time, budget is basically cost, quality, environment, safety and health. And then one more thing that I miss here is basically we can mention about contractual obligation. We don't have to mention it because it automatically relate to the cost, quality, etc., whereby all these things are being mentioned, being put together in a contract document anyway. But there might be certain clauses other than the following item, which basically you need to comply. Meaning to say, you might basically completed the project according to time, scope, etc. But there could be other item which basically you do not comply in terms of terms and conditions. So which basically can create conflict between client and even you as a contractor itself. So meaning to say project is being delivered not in a satisfactory manners. There are some things which basically people might not be happy. By right, everything should be considered as achievable. All right. Okay, so you see, this is the example. Time, and then what else? Okay. Safety and health, environmental cost, quality, and then contractual obligation. Okay, I thought I didn't have this figure. All right, then that is what basically project requirement. Normally in construction, during construction phase, these are the things that people are looking at. So it is the responsibility of the contractor in order to complete the project according to this kind of requirement. Okay, now if we zoom in into site management in particular, so the item mentioned time, cost, quality, environment, health and safety is going to be measured by many so-called KPI. Okay, so-called KPI, for instance, quality, a lot of supervision, a lot of testing, and then a lot of recording that you need to do. If you use ISO 9001 for quality, then a lot of documentation, and then quality control, etc., etc. So everything, you can use many tools, but the most important thing, you achieve the KPI with regard to the quality. So these are just simply the measurement tools that we can use in order to make sure we achieve those KPI. This is just an example. Construction project issue is almost similar to the construction industry issue and challenges that we mentioned. If you go through the list, everything is almost the same. Contract and legal obligation. It is never-ending issue. Okay, standard and compliant to standard requirement, especially for quality, resource, machinery, labor, and material shortage, or the quality of material might not be up to standard. And then even the labor issue, unskilled workers. So everything are very much related to the one that we already mentioned in our, what we call last week's slide. Okay, construction. Construction is not an easy job. So that's why construction can be considered as very complex, very, what we call very tiring industry. If you have been in the construction, if you basically can get another job, please do so, okay? Because you never know, you have to work in a so-called 3D industry, dirty, dangerous, demeaning, or sometimes people call it 4D. Whatever D that you can add to construction industry is there, okay? And you need to know many things. You need to learn many things: planning, scheduling, financial management, law, quality, etc., etc. And if you ever wonder, you have taken, for instance, construction technology, estimating, and contract class, there are so many topics being put together inside the class. Why? Well, because that is the nature of construction industry. If you want to get into construction industry, you need to know many things. Okay, if you are into design, then basically you can focus on design. But even design also do have many branches. But if you want to become contractor, for instance, then you need to have some kind of knowledge that can assist you. Okay, now we go into this drawing. This is, I would consider, as very important drawing that reflect things that we are going to go through the entire semester. Can be lumped into this diagram. Okay, first thing, the bull's eye here is basically the triple constraint, which can be changed using this concept here. This is from PMI, Project Management Institute, or as I mentioned, I normally would like to draw a more comprehensive the objective of project management. This is what we call objective of project management. In the middle here is being scope, then what? Time, cost, quality, safety and health, and then environment. So you can put this thing inside at the center there. This could be more comprehensive because we do not leave out all the project requirement as we mentioned before. Everything is there. Okay, and in order to achieve this objective, you need 5 M's. 5 M's. The first M, second M, third, fourth, fifth M. Machine, material, work method, proper work method, money, and man. Okay, now let's give example. Give example of this building. Maybe you know this building. Okay, this building. Everybody know this building. KLCC, the only the tallest two tower in the world. Okay, it was used to be the tallest building in the world. We hold the record for many years, and then taken over by Taiwan, and then subsequently taken over by Burj Al Khalifa. Now we are building another second tallest tower in the world. All right, so these two buildings being built by two different contractors. One is Japan, and this one is Korea. Okay, Korea. So this Japanese firm and Korean firm, are they using machinery, material, manpower, money from Japan and Korea only? Well, I don't think so. Material, for instance, you can use local material. Cement is cement, sand is sand, earth is there, concrete. You don't have to import everything from Japan and Korea. Similarly, machine. Yeah, we do have machine from Japan and Korea, but machine is machine. You can use any machine as long as it works. And then manpower. Well, I believe they don't use Korean and Japanese. Maybe they do have managers there, only a few, but the rest are from Bangladesh, Indonesia, and from the third world anyway. Okay. And then money. I don't think they use Japan yen and then Korean won in order to pay everybody. No, they just use Malaysian money anyway because the project is here. So why basically we need to give the project to Japan and Korea? Why don't we give the project to our local contractor so that the money will not be going away? Okay, so the money will be circling inside Malaysia, which is better for our economy. Well, the only remaining criteria is basically construction method. This basically distinguish between capable contractor and not very capable contractor. You just imagine if, for instance, we give this project to Malaysian contractor which have never experienced building high-rise building, the tallest building in the world, for instance. What, how are you going to imagine the outcome? We cannot really imagine the outcome. The building might not be completed, abandoned, will be late, or even will be leaning like the Teluk Intan Tower there or Pisa. I don't know, because we do lack of experience. This is what construction method is all about. The know-how, the technological innovation, the experience, that could be the determining point in order for the client to decide which contractor shall be given the job. See, resources. And the resources have to be utilized according to the right amount. We do not want to bring too many people, less people to the construction site because everything need money. Okay, everything need money or related to money. And then lastly, project management process. Basically refer to this element: planning, organizing, leading, directing, staffing, communicating, coordinating, motivating, monitoring and controlling, and etc., etc., etc. Because remember, project management basically is the utilization of knowledge, skill, tool, and technique being incorporated into a certain project, and the mechanism being used or the process being used is basically planning. Because how are you going to use the resources? You need planning. When are you going to bring in people, material, etc., etc.? Everything is through planning, etc. Organizing basically relate to team, management team. You need management team. You cannot basically just bring in workers, but then there is nobody else around in order to direct the people what to do. You need management team. They are the one that instruct, they are the one that do the planning, and then they instruct the supervisor, and then basically foreman, and then foreman will instruct the workers, and every day they do have a schedule for the job, and that's how things will be running. Okay. And then leading is example of you lead by example. Okay, so those are the things. And if, for instance, if we refer to other publication, so they represent the previous diagram in different way, but the objective is still the same. The intention, the purpose is the same. Example, in the middle here. They mentioned that the objective of the project to minimize cost and time. Okay, time and cost is there. Increasing productivity. Whereas in the previous slide, it doesn't have the productivity, but then you must understand what is productivity is all about. Productivity is being defined as the ratio between output and input. Output and input, and output is in terms of quantity, whereas input is in terms of the time. Again, the time is being mentioned again. The quantity basically relate to the cost. You see, everything is related, but without mentioning productivity, you should be able to understand the concept of triple constraint. So that's why triple constraint is widely used as a concept in order to reflect many things. Maximizing profit, again, is related to cost. How do you maximize the profit? Not by cheating, not by cutting corners, not by degrading the quality. Okay, there are methods that you need to use in order to minimize the cost. Example, you minimize the wastage. Example, you do the scheduling so that you do not have the machine idling time, or you do not have the workers basically wandering around without doing anything because they do not know what to do. Nobody instruct them to do things. At the end of the day, you are going to waste your manpower, machine, etc. Okay, so that's how you reduce the profit. But the most important thing I want to mention in terms of resources. So remember I mentioned about 5 M's. This can be related to money. This is manpower, and then this is equivalent to machine and material. Only 4. How about the method? Why the method is not being mentioned here? Because method is something which is intangible. You really cannot see. Similar to your experience. Nobody can see your experience. Only you know your experience. You see, that's why it's something that cannot be gauged. So that's why it is not being mentioned here. But in reality, construction, the method or know-how play very important role, okay, in determining whether you are going to be successful or not in project execution. Okay, so let's go very quickly on 4 what we call project management process, namely planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. We just zoom in the 4 items there. Okay, 4 items: planning, organizing, leading, and then controlling. So what is planning? We do have a big topic with regard to planning, but later on, just to go very quickly. So planning is what we call thinking process. 5W plus 1H. Thinking process. So planning is something which is not there yet. We do planning for something in the future. Let's say next year we want to graduate. So what is your plan? So thing is not there yet. So that is what planning is all about. So planning involves thinking process. What to do, when, which, who going to get involved, where is the location, when you are going to execute, and then H is basically how. So that is what we call planning. Okay, planning is a thinking process to come up with what could be the list of things that you want to execute, and then by doing so, you will basically have ample time to react if something not in accordance to the plan, because you will put the thinking in terms of there is a plan A, plan B, plan C, etc., etc. if something is not in accordance to the plan. So that is the planning. And in fact, planning is being considered as the heart of project management. Everything basically starts with planning. You know what heart? Heart meaning to say jantung in Malay. Yeah? If a human being The most important thing is basically the heart. If your heart basically stop, then basically you will be gone case. Okay, you will be gone case. So how important is your survival basically based on your heart. Similarly, in a project, training is very important. Organizing. Okay, organizing basically related to human or team. Have you ever heard about organizational structure? When you get involved in any group activity or any society, the first thing first, they will basically conduct a meeting in order to come up who is going to be the chairman, president, or so-called secretary, and then all the division in whatever unit, and then you basically draw them in organizational chart. Why basically you develop organizational structure? Well, simply because you want to delegate the work. Who is going to do the work? Well, those people inside the organization is the one that's why people hire that's why organization hire people, because there are work to be done, and who is going to be the leader, for instance, and the workers are not part of the organizational chart. Otherwise, the organizational chart will be very big, which might not fit into your wall, the whole building there. So organizational chart normally involve the key person, from the big boss until branches into the small unit, division, section, department, or whatever thing that you name it. Then from that, we know many things. Later on, we are going to learn about organizational structure in one of the slides. Next, leading. So the word leader basically coming from this word, basically leading. Leading meaning to say you lead people. You lead people into something. So basically you show people the way. You do not basically instruct people to do things without leading them to the right direction, because nobody know how to do things. You need to basically let them know. If you already have experience, your experience will be transferred to the people who basically under you through the process of so-called what we call leadership. So that is what leading is all about. And the best leading is basically leading by example. You are the one that should start showing all kind of the right thing, then only the people under you will start perhaps follow the positive things. Then controlling. Controlling is one of the important function. It is not just controlling alone. It will come with monitoring and controlling. That will be the two words attached together to complete the whole process. Monitor. Monitor is the process where you gather information. For instance, in the COVID situation, every day we do have statistics. People are getting positive here and there. Then only from that figure, government will take action. Government will decide to announce movement control, to announce here and there whatever the SOP, right? From the information that they get. So the information is the method gathered from the monitoring process. Without monitoring, then you cannot take action. Controlling is basically take action. Because if you take action without any information, then it is going to be useless. Okay? Last time, for instance, we lock everybody inside the house, but the case keep going on and on and on. Now the case is also high, but everybody is out there. So maybe that was because the information that we are getting might not be accurate, or because we were waiting for the vaccine. Okay, now because since everybody getting the vaccine except the anti-vaccine, so perhaps it is much safer to let everybody out from the cage. Okay, so that will be monitoring and control. Management level. So when we talk about management level, there could be level in terms of pyramid, top manager, and then middle manager, first line manager, and non-management team. I'm not really sure when you graduate and start working, where is your position? Okay, where is your position? Well, automatically, once you become engineer, you are into the management team already. Even though your salary might not be as big as manager, but automatically you are into the management team already. That is the thing for sure. The non-management is basically people under you. Perhaps the all kind of workers would be the non-management. Okay, so automatically you become the important person, even though your salary is a little bit higher than the people who have been working in the factory workers or construction workers for a few years. So your salary might be lower than them, because you just started. But that's okay, it's a matter of time. Okay, then if you are in the first line manager, you normally will interact a lot with the people who will execute the work. And then middle manager. Middle manager is basically in between the top manager. Top manager will give all kind of policy, and then middle manager will transfer that the first manager. So if you want to be in a leisure position, go into this position, because people who are up there basically doing nothing. They just come to the office and delegate the work. Okay, and then by tomorrow I want to see the result. Who is going to do the work? Not them, you. Okay, you and the rest of the people under you. Okay, we do not want to do like this. Everybody want to be manager. Why? Because of the higher salary, and nobody can scold them, can instruct them. They are the one that instruct people, and most of the time, so many managers, but with very few people who execute the work. And at the end of the day, who is going to be to be fired first? Basically, the workers. Whereas the manager is the one that should be fired first, because there are too many. They basically contribute to the majority of the salary or the cost being spent, basically have to be paid to them. Okay, managerial role, interpersonal, informational, decisional. Okay, example. As a manager, you need to play many roles. First is basically interpersonal role. Interpersonal role means to say relationship between one person to another. You have to be so-called like mediator, liaison, okay, between everybody. And then figurehead role. Figurehead role, normally it is not that easy. Maybe you remember a person like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk. Those people can be considered as figurehead role. When they come into certain organization, they transform organization into something that we had never seen before. That is an example. But most normal leader might not be having that kind of so-called skill. Only a few people will basically have. Okay, and then informational role. As a leader, you basically have to monitor the situation. Even though you delegate the work, but you cannot run away from your so-called accountability. There is two things. We call it responsibility and accountability. You can delegate responsibility to others, but the accountability remain yours. You cannot basically blame your manager if something big happening. You are the one that normally in a Japanese firm, for instance, all the leader or Korean firm, they do have the culture. They are the one that basically will design first instead of the manager. You see, they take accountability for whatever thing happen. Even though they are not the one that directly, it is being caused by all kind of bunch of manager, but that is the responsible leader. Okay, disseminator role. Oftentimes your workers or people under your organization need information. People are waiting. Example, during COVID situation, we, even as a lecturer, we are waiting for the top management to make decision. Whether we are going to open the university or not, is it online? Do we have to come to the work? Because sometimes, most of the time, we have to work from home. So the decision sometimes very late. See, that is an example of maybe the leader have to wait for the information in order to make a decision. Okay, so disseminate information as much as possible so that everybody aware of what is going on. Spokesperson meaning to say, remember during the COVID situation, example, we do appoint a spokesperson. Last time the spokesperson is basically the DG, health director. Even though we do have a minister, but minister basically uh, don't have the ability to speak well. Whenever he speak, people make a joke, because not everybody can speak well, because they are people who are very skillful. And now, example, Khairi Jamaluddin, for instance, when he become health minister, he is the one that do all the talking because his English is good. He basically graduate from Oxford, bukan main-main punya, bukan local university and whatnot. So, and he can speak and answer well. So why not? He is the spokesperson, okay, etc. Then decisional role. Decisional role. Okay. Oftentimes, as a manager or leader, you have to make decision after decision. We all make decision in our life. Every day we make decision what to purchase, what to buy, what to eat, where are we going after this, etc., etc. But the most important thing as a leader, you need to make decision because your decision will affect organization, will be very costly. It costs an organization million or billion because of your bad decision. So you have to make a right decision. Entrepreneur. As a manager or leader, you must have the entrepreneur mind. Because oftentimes you need to negotiate the price between supplier, contractor, subcontractor, etc., between client. You need to come up with the best decision. If you don't have the mentality of the businessman, well, you are going to make the company loss and bankrupt in a matter of time. Okay? And that's why UTM, somehow we do have motto, global innovation and then entrepreneur, isn't it? You might wonder, what the heck is the entrepreneur got anything to do with the engineering kind of study? Are they forcing us to become entrepreneur, and they force us to take the entrepreneur class, which basically we have to sell the keropok leko and all kind of basically does not reflect our field? Well, that is not the idea actually. Well, if you notice, the whoever become entrepreneur like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, the Amazon guy, and whoever big company, or even a small company, we do have in Malaysia, we do have entrepreneur. And normally the rich guy will be the entrepreneur who sell all kind of domestic product. They get all the domestic product from Thailand in bulk, kilo, and then they repackage and sell. And then basically they come up with all kind MLM kind of thing that whereby people who wanted to join have to pay thousand and thousand of ringgit to them, so they become very rich in a quick matter of time. But then the people who join basically suffering because it is very hard to sell the product which is not in high quality. But at least they do have entrepreneur mind, isn't it? They are very smart in cheating people at least. Then what kind of characteristic with regard to entrepreneur? They basically they don't get tired. They don't have any embarrassment, even though the product basically is useless. They still mention the product is good when the product is not the sale is dropped, they change the rebranding, the name, etc., etc. It's the same product, but they do change thing, and people thought that it is a better product, and then people start buying again. You see, so the entrepreneur do have some kind of mind. So that kind of mind that UTM wanted the student to basically have, not basically everybody have to open up company. Logically, there is no logic. If everybody open up company, then who is going to become workers or basically engineer? Okay, everybody busy with managing their business. Disturbance handler. Oftentimes, people will be fighting. There could be issue with regard to professional. Professional also will be fighting among themselves during meeting and throw all kind of bad words. That is very common in construction. And then even among workers also, they will be fighting. The Bangladesh and the Vietnam might not get along. The Pakistani also might not get along. The Malay and the whoever people, they do have all kind of differences in the background. So you must cool things down. And then resource allocator. Well, you want to let people work efficiently, but then you need to supply them with sufficient resources. So budget must be there. So you must be able to see, okay, who basically need all kind of resources. So you give them the right support. So that is very important in decisional making. Negotiator, where oftentimes as an entrepreneur, automatically you need to have this kind of negotiator role. So entrepreneur basically do get all the raw material um, from certain places at a very cheap rate, and then they will basically mark up. Later on, they will sell back at a much higher rate. Okay, that you need that kind of skill. Managerial skill. Okay, in terms of what? Let's take a look at this concept. Line manager, okay, line manager, middle manager, and top manager. You know what? When you are still young, okay, when you start work, most of the time you are going to involve with a lot of what we call technical skill. But when you get older, or you are being promoted to manager, upper manager, top manager, and then the skill things is the technical thing is going to be less and less. So that's why when if you ever have experience working at the construction site, you notice that the people who go to construction site, all the young people, and how exactly the young people is going to solve all kind of problem because they do not have the experience. Where are the old people? Old people are basically sitting in the office. This is very contrary in the Western world. I have been to construction site in Western world, for instance, US, etc. And in US, for instance, the senior designer still going to the construction site to look after all kind of issues. When he went to the construction site, then he can basically give a very quick solution because he have all kind of experience with him. That should be the situation. We in Malaysia is a different way. Okay, the practical student will do all kind of technical thing, whereas all the senior guy will basically do nothing. They are very busy with their life, their family situation instead of organization problem. Okay, management challenge. Management challenges are similar to the construction industry challenges that we mentioned. We do face with the global issue where competition are very stiff. In the open market, for instance, we can allow contractor from different country, consultant from different country to enter into a country and then bid for a project. So if we are not up to the standard, global standard or knowledge, we can easily being left out. Building competitive advantages through superior efficiency, quality, innovation, responsiveness, then etc. etc. That would be good. And then increasing performance while remaining ethical. ethic is a big thing now, not only nowadays, because nowadays people tend to basically forget many things. They want to get rich very quickly. If they have been working for a few years, they want to buy a big car, a big house, etc., etc. Well, you will get into that slowly. And you know what? How much is the salary of project manager? Senior project manager, you can earn easily more than 10,000, 15,000. I know that last time UTM, when we we develop many building like a stadium, etc., etc. At one time, our project basically was around almost 1 billion, and at that time UTM was searching for resident engineer. There is one position for resident engineer, and UTM offered a salary of 20,000 ringgit per month for a resident engineer. You must have experience like 20 years, minimum of 20 years. So you see, over a period of time, you will basically develop and build your career. Okay, just a matter of time. When you start work, for sure, nobody will give you a higher salary than the average salary. Why? People would like to pay you more because you do not demonstrate the ability to many things yet. But over a period of time, then only things will fall just nicely in place. Okay, we cannot avoid using new technology. Unfortunately, we do not develop the technology. Many technology are being developed overseas because our R&D spending is very low. If you notice that country where they do spend a lot of money in R&D, they are the one that will come up with a lot of technology. Country like Germany, country like even Singapore, much better in terms of innovation because they do spend a lot of money. Country like Sweden, Finland, many European country, Korea, Japan, US not to mention, and even Israel. Israel also is a forefront in terms of innovation, technology, and R&D, and a lot of IT nowadays that we use all kind of IT technology basically is coming from Israel because they do spend money on R&D anyway. Okay, with that we stop at the first topic of the day. We shall take about 10-minute break so that we can go into next slide. Okay, so please take a 10-minute break. We are going to come back at 3:15.